Welcome to the Tarantula Collective. My name is Richard. If you enjoy species-specific care and husbandry videos, as well as everything tarantula and invert related, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. That way you'll be alerted every time I upload a new video. Today we'll be focused on a species of tarantula that I received a little while ago from Paladin Exotics. Murray sent me this species in the mail because he noticed I didn't have one in my collection, and a lot of people were leaving comments down below other videos asking me to cover this species. So I'm going to break down exactly how I care, set up, and feed the Aphonopelma hentzi. And hopefully it'll help some people out there that have recently added this to their collection or just want to brush up on their husbandry. The Aphonopelma hentzi, usually referred to by the common name the Texas Brown, Oklahoma Brown, or Missouri Tarantula, is a New World terrestrial species that is endemic to the southern United States. A close cousin of the popular Aphonopelma chalcodes, or Arizona blonde tarantula, this is one of the few species of tarantula native to the United States. The Texas Brown is not as popular in the hobby, mostly because people find them boring or even unattractive compared to the more colorful and exotic species found in the hobby these days. This specimen has a bronze or brass-colored carapace, a burgundy or brown abdomen, and black legs, making it very distinguishable from the Arizona blonde. The Texas Brown is known for being very docile and very long-lived, with females living over 30 years, while males tend to only live between 8 to 12 years. They are typically found in the scrublands or southwest prairies of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas, living in burrows that are sometimes abandoned by rodents and reptiles, so their humidity needs are very low. During mating season in the late summer, early fall, males can typically be found wandering these areas looking for mates, even in the more populated areas of the states. I keep my spiderlings, like most of my other New World slings, in small AMAC boxes. These specimens like to burrow a lot at this size, so I make sure to use an enclosure that will give them the ability to dig deep. I keep the substrate mostly dry, though I do drip some water down the corner of the enclosure once a week to help saturate the bottom levels for a little humidity, but never enough to make it swampy. I provide a hide and a small water dish if there is room. If there is no room, I miss the side of the enclosure slightly or drop some water on the webbing once a week so it has a little something to drink. I feed my Texas Brown slings under ½ inch, 1 or 2 pinhead crickets or roaches once a week, depending on the size of their abdomen. If the abdomen is small, I will feed more often, like every 4 or 5 days. And as it plumps up, I will feed less often, like every 10 to 12 days. If the sling refuses food, I remove the prey within a few hours and try again in a week or so. This tarantula can go weeks or even months without eating. And if you overfeed them, they can go into pre-molt and hide in their burrow, sealing themselves off. And you will not see them for months until they molt and venture out again. I wait about 3 days after they molt before attempting to feed them, but sometimes they won't eat again for a week or two. Once they outgrow those enclosures, I move them into my normal terrestrial juvenile enclosures with more height than width, and fill the enclosure up about 2/3 with substrate. I usually use cocoa fiber or peat moss as they don't have any high humidity requirements. I provide a cork bark hide and a water dish and keep the substrate dry, but the water dish full. I feed 1 or 2 small crickets every 7 to 10 days, and again base the frequency on the size of their abdomen. I'll feed once a week when they're skinny right after a molt, and every 10 to 14 days once they begin to plump up. Again, this is a slow-growing species, and simply feeding them more food more often will not cause them to grow faster. It will only send them into pre-molt sooner. Once the tea stops taking food, it will usually hide away in its burrow for weeks or even months before emerging again post-molt. It can take this specimen 8 to 10 years before they reach their adult size, so I usually move them into a 2.5 gallon enclosure that has more width than height and fill it up at least halfway to 2/3 with substrate. You don't want the length between the bottom of the substrate and the top of the enclosure to be more than 1.5 times the leg span of the tarantula to decrease the risk of damage caused from a fall. I provide a hide and water dish, but at this size, they really become bulldozers and will redecorate the entire enclosure, usually burying their hide and constantly filling their water dish with substrate. Mine typically make a burrow all the way down to the bottom of the enclosure, but once they're around 3 inches in size, they tend to spend most of their time out in the open. At most, when full grown, this tarantula won't need an enclosure larger than a 5-gallon setup, but you can keep them safely in an enclosure up to 10 gallons. This is a very docile tarantula and very easy to take care of. Though they are not as beautiful as the Aphonopelma hentzi, their care and temperament are nearly the same. The only difference I've noticed in this species is that the hentzi seems to be a little quicker, moving faster than the Arizona blonde, and mine seems to spend most of its time moving substrate around its enclosure. Overall, this is a very easy tea to maintain and a nice addition to your collection after you already have the Chalcodes, Simani, and Bicoloratum. Now, this tarantula may not be as pretty as its cousins, but it is very easy to take care of. And if you know how to take care of the Bicoloratum or the Chalcodes or the Aphonopelma Simani, and you already know how to care for this one. Even though I refer to it as kind of my ugly duckling or the most unattractive tarantula in my collection, it is still a pretty cool species, and in my experience is the most active out of all of my Aphonopelmas. Most of them are just kind of like pet rocks. They'll just sit on their enclosure, they may burrow a little bit, and they'll hide for months at a time. But this tarantula spent a lot of time just moving substrate all around its enclosure, and it is almost always sitting out on top. If you want more details about the care and husbandry for this species, I'll be posting up the full care sheet on my website, thetarantulacollective.com. There you can also find care sheets on all the other species I've covered here in Tarantula Tuesday. There's also links to a lot of online tarantula and reptile dealers, as well as other podcasts, magazines, or YouTube channels I think you might find helpful, or at least interesting. If you want to see the care and husbandry videos for my other Aphonopelma species, I will link that video up right here. And if you want to catch up on all the past episodes of Tarantula Tuesday, just check out this playlist right here. Well, I appreciate you watching. Subscribe if you want to see more videos. Thanks for buying Tarantula Collective merchandise, and I will see you next Tuesday.